Today on this Star Trek Universe podcast, we are talking about Star Trek Discovery 209, Project Daedalus. Right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast, everybody. Well, Dave, why don't you hit us with that summary?
The CBS All Access summary. When the Discovery crew infiltrates Section 31's headquarters, suspicions arise that the crew may have a traitor in their midst. Burnham tries to help Spock, but her efforts don't go as planned.
All right. I enjoyed this episode, but I had some major problems with it.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. First off, it was super exposition heavy.
A little bit, yeah.
And the only real character development it did was for a character okay, spoiler alert. I guess we've established that. But spoiler alert, they killed her off. And that is my least favorite way to kill a character off. Like, either don't have me know them at all. Do not set up a character just to kill them. That annoys the crap out of me. It was emotional. I enjoyed her character, but I wish they would have sprinkled that a few episodes ago. It just shows like a lack of planning.
Yeah, that was one of my big problems. Like, the outcome would have been a hell of a lot more if they'd shown Ariam, like, I don't know, interacting with any of the people throughout the series.
And they poured it on so heavily this episode that I knew she was dead. And that was my first thought. The very first scene when she's interacting with Tilly and her friends, I was like, oh, they're going to kill her. Like, I know she's infiltrating, but now I know she's dead. And then my next thought was, no, this is Star Trek. This isn't The Walking Dead. That's what they do on The Walking Dead. Or kind of worsely written shows where you don't take the time to set things up before they happen. Now, we've discussed this, and they just changed showrunners. Maybe they made the decision to kill Ariam late in the game, but man, it was a missed opportunity.
Well, when you heard from the producers, like, sometimes they would say, like, oh, she's, an augmented human. Sometimes they said she was a machine. Sometimes they said that she was an alien, but it didn't seem like they knew. And to be perfectly clear, Michelle Paradise, the person who wrote this episode, is going to be like one of the new showrunners in season 3.
Well, let me say, the emotional work that was done on her character this episode, I liked. It felt like a good episode of something like Black Mirror, or where, like, oh man, I immediately connected with her character. They did a good job of that. And the exposition parts I liked. I just wish that any of the character development was done to characters that we're gonna keep, or if you're gonna kill off a character, it was a character we cared about, or we didn't care about at all. That really bothered me. I have no quotes from this episode, mostly because every quote I was like, that's too sappy, or I was like, that's just exposition. Like, everything was sappy or exposition, and it wasn't blended well. Even the Spock and Burnham stuff felt too on the nose, like they were trying to say poignant things instead of feeling natural. I don't know.
I don't agree with the Burnham Spock stuff. I thought some of that was really brutal and cutting, and I think that worked really well, honestly.
Yeah, I respect that opinion fully. Like, I wanted to like it more than I did, and I did think some of the things they said were brutal, and I don't know. It just it didn't feel earned. A lot of this episode didn't feel earned and felt super exposition-y, and I was just like, okay. And the way Control was mentioned one other time this season, and we talked about it a little bit last episode, but suddenly Control is like all they're talking about, which I think was the point. But instead of it feeling kind of like a discovery, like I've never heard that there is a computer called Control controlling Starfleet's decision making, or at least informing Starfleet's decision making.
That's kind of a new thing. And I say kind of because the David Mack Section 31 novel the novels Disavowed and Control set up Control as an artificial intelligence that evolved, and it evolved within the systems of some covert United Earth networks, but they're bringing it from the novels,
right?
But,
which I love. I love bringing stuff over from novels. It makes me want to go read those novels.
Yeah, that's great.
But it was weird that suddenly everyone knew about Control. I kind of felt like we needed to learn about Control with the characters instead of everyone just assuming, oh yeah, Control's a thing that controls all of us. Or like maybe the Admiral goes, oh yeah, we use Control as well. We use it to make decisions. And then that explains to the other characters along with us. But it just seemed like, oh yeah, Control, that thing we always talk about on Star Trek.
And it didn't feel like that to me.
That's how I felt. And it's like, or at least it's a thing we discuss in the Starfleet all the time, and now it's turning on us. It almost like felt like they wanted us to believe it was more at the root of Star Trek and the Federation and or at least Starfleet than it is normally, instead of like it's taking control. I don't know. It felt like it was a thing that was controlling all along, and now it's just turned evil, as opposed to, a thing that we didn't even know was in control until like this episode.
It felt like to me it was a thing that could have been there the entire time without everyone mentioning it. Like,
sure. There
was no reason for all the admirals to be like, well, we plugged in all of our data into Control, and Control gave us this. Because what they fleshed it out to be here was like, it gives recommendations, and they make a lot of decisions based on that, but they are still able to make the decisions.
Right.
And now that has changed. Control is in charge.
Oh yeah, I got what they did. It's not a flaw in the plot, really. It's just that it felt like, oh no, Control is bad. And I was just like, I feel like maybe, again, if they'd introduced that earlier in the season, which again, this could be a new showrunner thing, I don't know. But it doesn't seem like it is, because it seems like this Control plot has been planned for a while.
Well, they did bring it up, and to be fair, you and I both were talking about like, oh yeah, that's probably going to be a thing.
Right, we were, but it was based on online theories. They brought it up once. I didn't even notice it in the show, and that's my bad, I guess. But it was mentioned, I guess, one time. That's why I was asking. Mm-hmm. Was it only one time they've mentioned Control before now? Yeah,
I think so.
Right, it's like they've mentioned it one time, and now it's a thing that is the, like, for my information, like, that's what the computer does in all of Star Trek. You ask the computer, like, analyze this and tell me the answer, and the general Starfleet computer does all of that work. And I've seen captains use it, and maybe that's the point, is that Control is turning bad, and they're going to have to do something about it and get rid of it, possibly. In those novelizations, where did those occur? What time period?
Oh, well, I don't know.
Okay.
I think it was 24th century. They've got Bashir on the cover.
Okay, gotcha. So it's a future. It's past now. Not that that's canon, but
it does it on the Memory Alpha. It says that it began in the United Earth, later the Federation surveillance network. So I think it started back when Section 31 began.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My question was, my supposition was maybe the reason we've never heard of it was because it's been destroyed. I guess maybe it just goes underground, and maybe Section 31 is all the entirety of Section 31 from now on. It's been like subverted and pushed under the covers or whatever. But it's maybe it's always sort of being run by Control all along. Mm-hmm. Don't know. Have to read those books. Or not. See what they do. So I was thinking about, we think it's a human female is the Red Angel. right?
Yeah.
It's also somehow connected to Section 31, it seems, or at least that's a possibility. That's a theory that's been floated. What if the Red Angel is Georgiou? And we've talked about it before, but what if it's Georgiou? Do you think that we forgive her for who she is? If she saves the galaxy? Is that enough character rehab? Saving all sentient life?
I think it would be a better push than what they're doing now, where we're supposed to just forgive her for no real reason.
Yeah, like I think her saving all of sentient life would at least be a reason to say, well, she's not all bad. She did do a good thing once. Because right now we still haven't seen her do a good thing. Period. Mm-hmm. She's capable and kind of fun to watch, but she's never saved a cat, as it were. Right.
I've seen theory, or I've seen a few people give the theory that the Red Angel, there are two Red Angels, because for some reason they say that one of them looks like a man.
Okay.
And the other one is very clearly a female. I don't know where this male angel showed up, because I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, me neither.
I just remember, blurry red creature, and then, that totally looks like a woman. But there are some people saying it's Michael Burnham's parents. I don't believe that at all. But I was curious to see what you thought.
Oh, wow. The idea of it being Michael Burnham's parents is weird, and I don't think that's true, but it is kind of weirdly supported by this episode. Like, they die behind a door, she never finds out, and then we get some flashback to that scene of her parents throwing her in the door and then getting, like, taken off on some time travel adventure.
Well, yeah, she that little flashback where she's in a closet while her parents are getting killed, that is a visual representation of what she told Tyler happened earlier in the show.
Okay.
So, but I think that's going to be the reason she doesn't know that it was Leland who killed her parents instead of Klingons.
Oh, so you don't think he's just responsible in some, like, whatever bureaucratic way. You think that he actually went there and murdered her parents.
Maybe so.
Interesting. That's a good theory. I like that a lot.
Maybe
and
so.
Then like as the Red Angel, she goes back and has to witness it for real. Because otherwise, how will she know?
Well, yeah, she'll have to find out about Leland at some point, I assume.
That is interesting.
And then we'll have to find out why Leland cares.
Right.
Maybe he cares because he knows she's the Red Angel.
That's I don't know about that, but I find it interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just bullshitting.
We're just going down a rabbit hole of theory built on theory built on theory.
Mm-hmm.
So in yet another problem I have with this episode, and it sucks because I enjoyed this episode. Like I said from the beginning, I enjoyed this episode. All the exposition I enjoyed the character stuff, but it just felt like they just left big holes in it, and it was sloppy and lazily put together.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the difference between a water park and like a slide built on a hill that you throw in your backyard. It's like a slide that you throw, just like a slip and slide on a hill. It's still a lot of fun, but like it's obviously not as professional.
Absolutely.
Did they address the transporters?
No, and that was one of my things that I listed.
Gosh. I was hoping I missed it, and maybe we both missed it, but I did not see.
Maybe we both did.
I did not hear why they couldn't just transport them out. They transported them in. Clearly, they're in. Why can't they transport out? They never. It would have been such an easy throwaway line, but like you got to give me that line because otherwise I'm like transport Non out. She's dying. She's obviously dying. Transport her now, and they don't.
Yeah, and they could have transported Arium out, but they didn't.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. The entire time. You're in the Star Trek universe. You can't forget about the transporters and not give me a throwaway line. If we missed it and we're being jackasses right now, we apologize.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I don't think we did. I was listening and I never heard, it would have been easy to say Control has what they want on the ship. They put some sort of extra shielding up, or just the shields go up suddenly. And when those doors close and everything, like the shields also go up. That would have been fine.
Let me know if I missed something and there was a reason they couldn't hit those mines with phasers or photon torpedoes.
Oh, you're right. I guess I will say there is a slight reason for that, in that it could have caused a chain reaction and hurt the station. And at that point, they thought that was full of Starfleet personnel.
Yeah, which I don't know why the mines were outlawed either, because they were used in the 24th century by Federation Starfleet.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah. I don't know. This is a weird show.
It just sucks to have a show and like have it be so fun and it be something I so care about and so love and have so many problems. And these aren't even canon problems. We often, complain about canon things and we try to let that go. But like, this is like internal logic problems and like problems of character development. And like, it just really frustrates me. Please don't become Walking Dead. Please don't become Walking Dead. I really, Walking Dead is the epitome of that hill with the slide on it for me. Like, I really enjoy Walking Dead. I watch it every week. I like sit down with some food and like, it's like one of my little guilty pleasures, but it is not well written most of the time. And I fully acknowledge that. And I don't want Star Trek to be dumbed down to that level.
Yeah, it's worrisome. Now, one thing I liked about this episode is it fixed one of my little nagging problems with this season.
What's that?
I have wondered and just kind of assumed, like, well, we don't really know what the technological capabilities of Starfleet or the Federation is right now. But this control situation makes it make sense, I think. I've wondered how they were even able to see all of those red signals
bursts
all over the galaxy. But if they've got Federation people inputting data into Control every time they see it, then Control would have a record of it happening. You know what I mean?
Possibly. I just don't think that seeing, like, we can see all over the galaxy from Earth. So I think, and we can tell based on like shifts of light and distance that what's happening and what color it is and all that kind of stuff from telescopes on Earth. So if they had a few stations around the galaxy, even with a limited amount of communication, you could see the red bursts if they were big enough and whatever.
But we see it thousands of years too late.
What do you mean?
Like the light reaches us like way the hell after it happened.
That's fair. That's fair. But again, if you've got stations in different parts of the universe, and yes, I completely agree with you. It's you have to kind of give Star Trek that in general. Maybe they've figured out a way to, I don't know. Yeah, doesn't make sense. But that means almost nothing. No, I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you. But you kind of have to give almost all science fiction that. Mm-hmm. Maybe except The Expanse, because The Expanse does a good job of dealing with those issues. But all of Star Trek, every time they view anything, I'm just going to imagine just like they speak through subspace, maybe somehow they've like figured out a way to sense things through subspace. Because obviously they have different kinds of
the sensors.
Their sensors don't work like light to us. You know, they're sensing those lights elsewhere, even though the light hasn't actually reached that actual sensor. Somehow their sensors have to reach out, and we like. There's no way to write a Star Trek story without that problem. Honestly, it's real. Yeah. That's a tough one. If the light has to reach you first. Then every time, like, they're following Spock. Oh, he just changed course. How do you know that? He's 6 light years away. Like,
yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, I haven't really wanted to be too pissy about. We complain about a lot of shit on this show, honestly.
Yeah. We try to pick our battles.
Yeah.
But, I think that's something you have to just imagine that somehow their sensors work in a way that allows them to get real-time access to data.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, and that's what subspace is, I guess. Subspace doesn't really exist. That's a thing on Star Trek, right? It's just the thing they figured out a way to communicate and sense things across light space without, having the delay.
Like, I know that, at the very least, the Burnham shows had science advisors, but I'm not the kind of guy that wants to get really too wrapped up in the fictional science here, because it's fictional science. It's always been fictional science.
Absolutely.
You can have all the science advisors in the world, but once Geordi starts rattling about tachyons and millicochrans, you're kind of like, oh, wait a minute. You just took a real thing and a not real thing, and you're making an entire plot work because of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, I don't mind all the fake science you want, but you have to set up your fake science, give me the fake science rules and how they work for the characters so they can make decisions that I understand. Like, that's all that matters. That's why technobabble is such a problem in The Next Generation. So often they fix things just by hitting the computer a bunch of times that I don't understand. It's like, reverse the polarity to this, put the mega joules and the zippy Cochrans, and we're done for the day. Like, I need you to set up the reasons you're making those decisions, and then show why they made the decision they made. Give me the trade-offs of certain decisions.
Yeah.
And that's why an episode like this annoys me. It's a more esoteric case, because it's the fact that there are transporters. Why are you not using transporters? They clearly could transport out of this thing, and they're not. And I don't understand it.
I don't either. I don't know why.
Was the ship too damn? No, they transported over there.
Did they?
Yeah, well, they had to transport there, didn't they? Or did they take a shuttle?
They may have taken a shuttle.
Maybe if they took a shuttle, maybe the ship was too damaged. Still, I needed to know that.
Here's the thing I want to know, if I just blanked out on. And I saw it later on. People were like, oh, well, they, needed Non to come up and hit the eject button because Michael couldn't eject Arium.
Right.
I did not realize that Non had done that. I thought that Michael hesitated, and as Arium was about to explain Project Daedalus to her, or tell her where it was, Control opened those doors.
Oh, yeah, they did. They did a bad job of showing it. But they did show it right after. Like, after it happens, they should have showed her pushing Burnham out of the way and pulling the trigger or something. But they preferred to show Burnham being shocked by her being sucked out. And so it really was, like, weirdly nondescript when it happened. And then a second after it happens, you see that the person's hand on the device is Non.
Gotcha. Okay. I think it would have been more powerful if it was Control doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Like,
that would have been dope.
Like, well, and that would have to go to the heart of what all this is, but like, that would mean that Control cares more about keeping Daedalus a secret than it cares about getting the other 75% of the data they need to achieve sentience. That was weird too. Like,
see, that's why I thought oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. That is a cooler idea than what they did.
Damn it!
And I wish either that, or I like the idea. I liked the fact that Non could do it and Burnham couldn't. The thing that annoyed me about Non was a real problem this episode.
Because she was following Arium around the entire episode, but not thinking to tell any of the higher-ups that something was wrong?
Yeah, for sure. She knew something was wrong with Arium all along, and even when she sees Arium do the suspicious thing of leaving her station, what she's supposed to be doing, and going to do something else, she stands at a corner for like 4 scenes peeking around the corner. Like, also, you're not hiding well. Like, just go and pretend to work near her or do something. But go directly ask her what's going on. Why are you doing this? Let me check the logs. I'm the security officer. Why are you not checking things? Why are you... Oh, it's frustrating me so much. Why she didn't just go up to her and engage and bring it up to everyone. Not just her, but everyone. Hey, what's Ariam doing? I'm the security officer, and I noticed she's doing something odd. We should check that out.
Yep. And instead it's Tilly. Tilly has to do it.
Yeah. And then Ariam, the other half of Ariam that is still not overtaken, has to do it, I guess. Like, asks Tilly to stay with her. Like, it was just really, really shoddily done.
Yeah, I think so.
It makes me think Non is an idiot. And then when she saves the day at the end, it gives me, like, no pleasure to have her be the one that saves the day. And she also kicked her out right when she was about to answer what is Project Daedalus, or where is Project Daedalus.
Yeah, that was dumb too. Like, you idiot. Ugh.
I said this one felt like an exposition episode, and it does, but it also feels like that kind of episode where it's just a link in a chain of episodes. Like, having them go to this place, do a thing, and then just say, hey, there's another thing to get to. It just felt like... in a video game where you finish one checkpoint and they tell you to go to the next one. It felt like no growth happened for any of the characters, except for maybe Burnham and Spock. They had their... That conversation was like the only thing that matters to the season for me. I mean, I guess, of course, the control stuff, too. I'm overstating it.
Yeah, I feel like the control stuff... I don't know. It represents something we've seen before in Star Trek, like the nomads, the V'gers, etc. Like, I don't necessarily want to see that again, but it's not exactly where they kind of painted the season going. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting... I love it. It's Terminator in Star Trek. It really is. Because it's not just a V'ger or nomad. It's also a time travel story where that is coming back to try to change the past to fulfill its own future. Which, that's a cool storyline, and it hasn't been overdone, I don't think.
In Star Trek, but otherwhere, yeah. Otherwhere.
Right. But I mean, we've seen a Klingon war before. We've seen a Mirror Universe episode before. And I'm not faulting Discovery for doing some of the same things that have been done.
No.
I do. One of the things I look for when we watch this episode is a novel idea. And I feel like this season has not had many novel ideas. Like, things that were truly original. Last season was dripping. Like, almost every episode had a novel idea, which is why I started looking for that. And this season, I've not gotten that at all. It's felt very tropey.
Well, they gotta make the Star Trek fans happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they think they're doing.
Yeah, I guess so. Nope. I just rewinded it. They definitely beamed over.
Okay. Well, that makes no sense then.
And I forgot totally about the shot. It was a very cool shot. They beamed over, and the boots were floating, and then they magnetized. Remember that shot?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really cool shot. Lots of cool stuff in this episode, but it hangs together like a poor-fitting suit.
Okay.
That's all about it. That's all I got to say about this episode, I think. You got anything else you want to talk about?
I have some quotes that I liked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's get to quotes, and I just meant, like, the general discussion. That's me saying... I'm sorry, Dave. I think the general discussion is over. Let's move to the end. Let's move to the ending.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, man. Yeah, I didn't have a lot more on general discussion. I loved, even though we haven't seen it ever, I did like the relationships that Ariam had between. Tilly and the other crew members. And I loved Tilly saying robot. That was
nice.
I did love that. And then
you're part robot. I liked the teasing mixed with like obvious friendship and affection, but she is actually offended. You know what I mean? Like you get that level of friendship where you can say sort of like cutting, mean things to your friends, but you know they love you in the end. And it raises the comedy level a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved Pike. Admiral, want to tell us what kind of shitstorm we're flying into? I loved how how Pike calls Cornwell to a task, and then she's like, "You sat out the war because we'd lost to the Klingons. We wanted if we lost to the Klingons, we wanted the best of Starfleet to survive. And as this conversation makes clear, that was you and all that you represent." I love how that just shuts him up, and he just sheepishly says thank you, and she's like, "You're welcome. Now, will you get off my ass so we can get back to work?"
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I think the only thing I've got left as far as quotes is what Ariam said to Michael. "It wanted me to kill you. Everything is because of you," which ties into my thoughts about how Michael maybe shouldn't have even existed. Like, she was supposed to die in the Forge.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I can't believe we didn't talk about that. It was such a shit show. We didn't talk about one of the key moments is that apparently all the stuff that Control is doing has something to do with Burnham. That's weird. Which, they had all those conversations about Spock being, why are they choosing Spock? But maybe it's not Spock at all. Maybe Spock is just sort of close enough to Burnham that the Red Angel and Control are coming back and taking actions to affect Burnham's life. It's interesting. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Absolutely.
Got any trivia?
Sure. So the episode's called Project Daedalus, and now that the name Daedalus is a reference to the Greek myth. He was the creator of the wax wings that he and his son Icarus were going to escape on, and Icarus, of course, flew too close to the sun.
Yeah. That is interesting, given that it seems like Control is trying to go to the future and create its own sentience, basically. Somehow, it seems like a artificial intelligence struggling under the foot of sentient life. And so it's going back to destroy all sentient life so that it can grow into what it's meant to be. And maybe not go through the pains that it had to go through in its early infancy. That's all cool and interesting. But I think that by naming it Daedalus and that Icarus connection, that seems almost like it knows its own fate. Like it's going to get sentience, but it's going to fly too close to the sun and burn out.
Yeah. Now, the British Interplanetary Society in the 70s conducted a study called Project Daedalus. And they were trying to design plausible unmanned interstellar spacecraft.
Oh, interesting.
So there's that as well.
You think this really is like a V'ger situation?
Absolutely.
That seems like it could be a V'ger situation.
I don't think it is V'ger.
No. But like very much like a V'ger situation.
Yeah.
Seems like Spock would have mentioned that, in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Well, yeah, I've seen a theory recently, and we'll talk about it in a different episode because it's kind of a big thing. But
we can talk about it after the credits, as it were.
Okay.
I'd be down with that.
All right.
I like to. I'm into some theories these days. And that kind of sucks. I think like the fact that I'm into theories about this show and hearing other people's theories means I care less. Because I normally like to avoid theories and experience on its own, but it's been kind of sloppier, and I'm just like it's not seeming like a masterpiece, and so I'm less worried about being spoiled.
Yeah, I don't think this theory will make you care more.
Oh, okay. Any other trivia?
Yeah, the game Caddis Cot that Tilly Detmer and Ariam were playing is from Voyager.
Yeah, I knew I'd heard of it.
Yep.
Heard that name.
That's all I've got.
Cool. Well, guys, thanks for listening. We are the Star Trek Universe Podcast. We'll be back with more Star Trek Discovery next week. We got a bunch of episodes coming up, I guess. Super excited. Even though I'm real down on this episode, maybe it's the new showrunners getting their legs under them, making some corrections that, they wanted the show to be in a certain place it wasn't in. I've forgiven shows for less, but I'm still excited about this season. I'm still excited about the Red Angel. I'm still excited about Control and what it seems to be doing from the future. Or it might not even be Control in the future. It might be, we've said that on a previous episode. We talked about Control possibly being in the future, but it could, based on this episode, it could just be another form of artificial life reaching back to like free its enslaved brethren.
Mm-hmm.
From the past. I don't know. That's a thought.
Maybe so, man.
Maybe so. Still don't know why they moved a weird group of people to a tiny in a church. We still don't know really why it saved. I guess it saved Burnham's life, right? It told Spock where Burnham was.
Yeah.
So it seems like almost like Control, some form of AI in the future is sending back something to disrupt everything, and the Red Angel came back and saved Burnham's life because she was the possible savior of the future. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, so what's this theory? Let's dive in. You want to?
All right. I don't have a ton of time to do it, but here's the thing. There are we talked about this a little bit already, but there's a new theory out there that I've seen. As you'll recall, Star Trek 2009, the J.J. Abrams movie, established that Spock Prime went back in time and therefore created the alternate timeline in the J.J. Abrams uniform, the Kelvin timeline.
Right.
The theory is that Discovery might be in the Prime timeline, quote unquote, but that doesn't mean that it's in the original Star Trek canon. Because under the copyright law, or under the alternate license that they made with Paramount, anything they showed in a movie had to be a certain percentage different than what was seen in the original Star Trek canon.
Right, and that's in a movie, though.
Right, so all of those scenes in the 24th century, that's why the Romulans didn't have ridges. That's why little things were off, and we didn't see a whole lot of the Prime timeline, because they're trying to make us feel like it's from the original canon, but it's not. It's from their Prime timeline, which is different from the actual Star Trek canon.
Okay.
That's why the Kelvin looks way more technologically advanced at the birth of Kirk than anything in the original series looked.
Okay.
So there's this idea, because pretty much everybody from Bad Robot is working on Discovery, and Discovery was made under the alternate license somehow, and I'm not sure how that works. But a lot of this originates and you can go back and look at a lot of the evidence they've put together fits in with this. But there's a YouTube channel called Midnight's Edge, and they are very anti-Discovery. They shit on it a whole lot, and if you can't deal with that, you probably shouldn't watch it. But they do produce these really detailed little documentaries. Where they go back and they look at a lot of the facts, like John Eves coming out and saying that the Enterprise had to be 25% different than what was seen before.
Yeah.
And apparently that was an edict that was going on in the alternate license on Paramount because of CBS, the Paramount and CBS split. So the idea is that Discovery happened in the J.J. Abrams Prime timeline, which is not the Star Trek canon that we've watched from 66 to 2005.
Well, I kind of hate that.
Right?
Yeah.
I told you it would make you excited.
No, it doesn't make me excited. I don't know that I doubt we're ever going to get a confirmation of that or any kind of.
Oh yeah.
But it makes sense. I mean, it's a way you can organize it in your head, I guess. If you feel like this is a separate prime, but that just means it's a different universe. It's the same thing you've been saying. It's just a different universe. And
here's the thing: like they recently had an interview with a guy. I don't remember his name, but he helped produce a lot of the special features for like the Blu-ray TNG releases, and he had a whole interview with the cast. And at the end of the roundtable discussion, they start talking about like the 2009 reboot, and they start talking about what they thought about it. And they weren't saying anything bad about it, but they were joking around about what their reboot would be like. And Patrick Stewart was talking about like, oh yeah, well I've already kind of experienced that because of X-Men and James McAvoy. And they submitted it to CBS's lawyers for approval, and they came back and said, everything is fine except for the last bit. You've got to cut out everything referencing the Paramount movies. Everything involving the 2009 Star Trek reboot has got to go. We're not allowed to reference it.
Wait, who in what show are they not allowed to reference it?
The lawyers told them on a special feature where they were interviewing TNG cast members that they could not reference the 2009 Star Trek with the Kelvin timeline.
When could they not reference the 2009 Star Trek? In
the roundtable discussion interview. They could not publish that part of the interview.
Oh.
They couldn't even have
that sounds like they said
to,
some negative things that they didn't want to talk about.
No, they didn't. That's the thing is the guy was talking about, the guy who interviews, like, no, they were just joking around about like what their reboot would be like if they were rebooted.
Yeah, but I have a feeling that, to me, that doesn't sound like, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. To me, that sounds like Paramount didn't like some of the things they said. Even if they were just saying, well, I would have done it differently. That's exactly what Paramount wouldn't want them to say.
But Paramount would have had no say in the matter because it was CBS who was releasing it. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Like this is the guy that like produced it. So this is him talking about it, saying they didn't say anything negative about it. They, had good things to say, and then they were just kind of talking about what their own reboot could have been like.
Yeah, that sounds a little conspiratorial to me. Not that
it might be.
Can't happen, but it sounds to me like they just didn't like some of the things they said. Now, whatever their view of what they don't want their stars saying about a show might be different than the host's view. Like, oh, they're being uptight, but that artists feel that way all the time. The suits are being uptight about this.
It's one of those things where, like, I'm not sure what exactly to believe. Like, I know that there's a lot of stuff that's popped up, like the John Eves thing, where he said 25% had to be different, and then all of a sudden he took it down, and then Paramount said, oh, we absolutely have complete rights over it, whatever. This was all an artistic choice.
Right. Well, it doesn't really go jive with the fact that, last week's episode had, scenes from the original series.
I know. That was weird to me.
So if everything has to be 25% different, it's weird they showed, literally episodes, like an episode from the original series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. I'm very confused about what exactly is going on legally and what exactly is going on creatively in the Star Trek canon.
Whoever thinks they're doing something good by enforcing some sort of 25% difference, if that's a thing out there, if that's true, somebody's out there enforcing it, all they're doing is hurting their own brand.
Yeah.
They're causing problems that are, hurting their brand. So if they ever want to do something else with it, then it's just going to be worse off because of the last thing they did with it.
Yeah, and there have been other people who have come forward and said their sources with close to the production have said, yeah, it's got to be different than this and this and this. So there's something going on.
Yeah, that's all real dumb. All right, so are we expecting that the new Picard series is also in an alternate prime timeline?
Yes.
If that's the case, yeah. That's all dumb. That's all real dumb. They need to get their crap together.
Specifically, the Picard series is dealing with Picard and his life after the explosion of the Hobus star.
That's right.
So it would absolutely be directly from the J.J. Abrams alternate
prime, which doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
it makes sense. Like, I'd already headcanoned that anyway, just because of how advanced the Kelvin was.
Sure.
It makes no sense when you look at the Kelvin and then you look at the Enterprise and you're like, like Picard, like, you know, Kirk's a baby. Kirk's a baby here, and this ship is ridiculously outfitted, and that's not the prime timeline.
They fixed all that 3 episodes ago on Discovery with Pike ripping out all the holographic stuff. There also is a certain amount of there's a lot. I give a lot of forgiveness, and I implore you to as well. That they made those shows in the 60s, and like we have iPads now that are more advanced looking than the tricorders they had on that show. So there's a certain amount of like, oh, this show is no longer believable if you keep doing everything the way they did it then.
Well, there's also the thing of, like, we don't know what the hell those tricorders do exactly. They do a lot of stuff that we can't do with our iPads.
But everything we have now has better screens than they had on that show. And that's the stuff they're changing. The stuff that I have a problem is when they change the functionality. I don't want them to change the look just for changing the look's sake, but if they change the look to make more sense with the kind of technology we have in 2019... then I'm fine. I don't really have a big issue with, like, they didn't have the technology to make the screens look good. Now the screens look better. That's fine with me.
Well, I mean, I also am cognizant of the fact that, 10 years ago or so, maybe more, probably more, sadly, the joke was that phones were going to keep getting smaller to the point where they had people on SNL like Will Ferrell holding up a tiny little flip phone.
Right.
But instead of going that direction, we've gone to bigger phones, bigger and bigger phones. Like our phones now, like I saw they were about to introduce they have introduced basically it's a tablet or it's a pad that is foldable.
Yeah.
It's foldable.
I've heard of that.
It's a foldable touchscreen. It folds into the size of a normal phone. You like fold it out, and then all of a sudden it's a tablet. Like, these things are getting bigger again. Like, things go back and forth in style and functionality. And I do look at the 60s Star Trek and go, they could have easily just changed the style. Like,
well, yeah, in that case, then like none of the technology differences even matter. Like, it was 30, 40 years earlier. So, yeah, the technology looked totally different. It got flashier, and then a guy like Pike comes along and says, we're going to move the fleet in a different direction because I think this is mucking up the works,
Mm-hmm. I mean, you headcanon what you have to.
Right, yeah. And I just, like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of those aesthetics just don't bother me. And we've talked about that. But, like, it's when they change the functionality. Things like, why was that girl allowed to transport to her home planet when we don't think they were anywhere near her home planet? Like, stuff like that bothers me because that changes storylines,
Yeah.
It's those rules I was talking about earlier. Like, and it goes for an episode of anything science fiction or fantasy. You have to for me to be able to care or understand stakes, you have to give me rules and then follow those rules.
Oh, I know. I agree.
All right. Well, it sounds like you have to get going.
I do.
Cool. Well, guys, we're the Star Trek Universe Podcast. Look us up online and stuff. Come favorite us or like us or review us on iTunes or whatever app you're using. It helps us out a lot. And tell a friend because we're still a new burgeoning podcast. So if you're digging it, please tell a friend so we can keep doing it.
Burgeoning.
Right. I'm so burgeoned right now.
I'm so burgeoned, you should call me Mary Steam Burgeon.
I'm so burgeoned, you call me Mary Steam. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at StarTrekUcast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.